obviously last week we had the Silk Road announcement, like the Polar Silk Road announcement, the
I was going to
5 year
bring that
plan.
up that one. I thought
Yeah.
that one was really interesting with China having the Arctic base. And so for those of you who don't know, in Ross's last week, this week in geopolitics, he talked about China wanting to have an Arctic base, investing in there, and particularly for trade routes, because as the ice caps continue to melt, I believe shipping up around the Arctic will be. Did you say it was 30 something percent faster than going through the Suez Canal?
So it's 2/3 of the time going. Yeah, I think 30% would fit it. So 2/3 of the time to go through this. So if you went through the Suez Canal, 66% of the time. My maths isn't great, but yeah, it's a third shorter. Is basically what I'm trying to say.
And that has massive
Yeah,
implications, right? Especially
yeah,
for
yeah,
China, that's such an export heavy country.
yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
do you know
I
what sort
think.
of other geopolitics of the Arctic is? This is an area that I know very little about.
I mean, that's what I wanted to sort of. I wanted to write my undergraduate dissertation and my master's dissertation both on the Arctic, actually. So, but yeah, basically, I think by 2050, I'm sort of throwing out a rough ballpark guess there. So, well, say guess. That's when the Arctic may be ice free for sort of large parts of the year. So obviously, you have the Northwest Passage, which goes through Canada. There's sort of like you can get through there, and there's obviously I don't know if you know that, but know this, but there's a dispute between sort of Canada and the wider world, mainly the US, about whether the Northwest Passage is an international waterway for use by everybody, or whether it's a domestic waterway within Canada, and
Mm.
so that Canada has sort of discretion over who passes through that as well. That's really interesting. Might have to do a video on that. You never know.
Yeah,
Um,
ideas coming up.
yeah, no, so that's the way I write. I just write things down when I sort of go through different topics, and then I just build on top of it. But yeah, you got the Northeast Passage as well, which is going to be the big one because Russia is looking to develop that area, sort of in the high, say the high north. I'm not quite sure if that's the correct term as well, but that's the sort of term they use for Scandinavia and places like that. But yeah, that sort of area is starting to become increasingly important as we sort of go forward into the 21st century. I would say we basically at King's we had a massive war sort of crisis simulation they called it. So we did the Arctic for that simulation, and it was quite interesting because I had obviously studying geopolitics. I had to make the map for it, so I had to map every single military base in the Arctic pretty much. And the Russian ones, there's big moves on the part of Russia in terms of the military going in there. The US/NATO just reopened a base in Iceland as well a few years ago. So obviously it's starting to build up there as well. And China coming to town as well will be even more interesting.
Do you think, I'm pretty sure that in the Arctic there's a really large supply of like undiscovered oil and like other
Yeah.
natural resources. Do you think that's part of the sort of land grab, so to speak, that's going
No,
on right now?
huge part of it I completely forgot about. But yeah, on top of that, you got huge oil reserves up there as well. Most of them in the Russian exclusive economic zone.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it'll be a pretty straightforward game actually in the Arctic, sort of delineating the boundaries of the exclusive economic zones. And obviously, well, I think I don't know how much you know about sort of maritime law and
That's
international
sort
law.
of like the distance from shore out into the
Yeah,
water that you have sort of sovereign reign over.
yeah. So you get so each country gets 12 miles of territorial waters, which are sort of their waters. I mean, I
Yep.
think ships can pass in it if it's sort of a reasonable sort of thing. But then you also get 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone, which you have the rights to exploit the resources in there. And then you get on top of that, you can get you can if you prove that your continental shelf extends further out, you can also claim that as well. I think that's the only point of contention in the Arctic that I can think of. Other than that, it's sort of looking towards more of a cooperative environment. I mean, a lot of people would beg to differ, but from what I've read, that's the sort of way it seems to be going. I mean, Russia, Norway, Iceland, Denmark with Greenland, Canada, the US. Not entirely. Some people like to sort of make out there's going to be a big point of contention, but I think those countries there's a low likelihood of them ever going into outright war over it. Basically, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
then
it's
does that make it
interesting.
valuable for the U.S. to purchase Greenland? Was
Yeah,
Trump smart all along thinking about the
that
trading routes?
that was one thing I had to say I thought was a smart move.